Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Why does a country need the stock market? The stock market provides equity or liquidity to those who need it. For example, if there is a promising technology coming up and it needs money to grow, then it can look to the stock market to raise the money, going through investment bankers and making pitches. Usually, what happens is the company's chief executives will go on a roadshow, meet with investment bankers in various cities, pitch the idea, the concept. Then the company goes public, and then based on the euphoria created and the expectation, the stock will rise, and that gives them much needed equity to grow. Now, this is in the case when everything is going right, the stock market is fair, transparent, and everybody can see what is going on. Let's take the case of India. Is India's stock market transparent and fair? Well, to know this, I just want to establish a small perspective before we try to answer this question. Now, in sometime in 1998 to 2004, so I don't know exactly which year, Mr. Yashwant Sinha, the then finance minister of BJP, had introduced this participatory note scheme because India was running dangerously low on foreign exchange to buy, the usual things like petrol and other things. So I believe, and I could be not 100% accurate on this, but I'm just giving you the general idea because it's now 20 years since that happened. What he did was he constructed this special purpose vehicle called as participatory note, and then he also enabled those people who were investing through Mauritius, these participatory notes, to enjoy zero capital gains tax. But what he also did was he said, I needed so much amount of dollars, and once that amount was reached, and I believe it was reached within days, he closed that window. In other words, India did not attract any more money on that participatory note vehicle, but the participatory note as a concept still stayed. It's just that the BJP did not make use of it. I'm trying to say this to establish the context that the participatory note was a creation of the BJP. Now, fast forward to 2004 and later, I believe, and you can watch some of Dr. Subramanian Swami's videos to know the exact context. I believe in one conversation, Madam Sonia Gandhi was talking to Chidambaram and said, when we put money in Swiss banks, the Swiss banks expect us to pay 2% just for them to hold our money. How come this is, how is this possible? This is not fair. I'm giving my money and I'm also giving them money to, 2% or something like that to just keep the money. So then the evil genius that Mr. Chidambaram is, he set to work and he came upon perhaps this participatory note thing. He said, well, there are a few things I can do with this, and with that, then India can use this within ourselves. So what he did, I believe, and I could be again, a little bit here and off there, but I'm just giving you the concept that he made the identity of the holder of the participatory note anonymous, and he also made sure that through the participatory notes, you could invest in the stock market, and all the capital gains that were accruing from that were capital gain. They were capital gains free because if you came through the Mauritius route, so they maintained that Mauritius route facility that the BJP had originally started with. So that was there. So now, fast forward to today, what is now happening is the shadow of participatory notes casts a huge impact on India's stock market. India's stock market has been suffering from one scam after the other. There was the NSDL scam. Now you have this ongoing high frequency trading scam, which the SEBI has been dragging its feet. They have not come and clamped down when sites like PGurus and Sunday Guardian, we've been writing article after article saying these are the small set of players that you need to go after, and I still have not seen tangible action. Some of them should have been taken into custodial interrogation to find out how this thing was done. Essentially, the high frequency trading scam for you is that it's like a student getting the examination paper a day before the exam. Why would the student not score 100% every time he takes the exam? That's exactly what happened in a small period of 2010 to 2014, some number of years before people caught on to it and this was stopped. However, the fact remains that even today, participatory notes are still available. Money is still coming in through participatory notes, and it is still being played in the stock market, and then the stock market is pumping up stocks. The money is, people are making huge amount of capital gains, and then they convert it back into dollars. It's called as hot money, by the way. And this is completely distorting the one source that India could have turned to, India's entrepreneurs could turn to raise money. Now, we as a country, India needs to have a growth upwards of 10%. 10% is a bare minimum. 10 to 15% is what we need to grow, because you have a huge workforce that is entering the market. I mean, and then jobs will not happen. But for all that, you need to have a vibrant, fair stock market. And to talk about this and more, let's turn to our economics expert. He's a gold medalist from Bombay University, Professor M.D. Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, welcome to PGurus channel.
Thank you, Sri.
So, sir, let's try to hone in now on this ongoing HFT scam probe that has been initiated by the SEBI, the Securities Exchange Board of India. And how do you see this thing going? What are your concerns? Do you share the concerns that I have? I have been saying this very loud, that something drastic has to be happening, and it needs to happen now.
Well, Sri, let me say about participatory notes that if there was one feature, which is that they could not be reconverted to dollars, I would have been okay with it, frankly. But the reality is, this feature of converting it back into dollars has opened the door for a tremendous amount of what a plain anti-national activity. Now, we are talking in terms of knowing the exam paper a day in advance. You're quite right. It's knowing the exam questions 3 hours in advance. So the point is that those who knew that could make a huge amount of profit in the stock market. And as you very well know, they could use participatory notes to move the market. The point is, Sri, what these operators wanted to do. One, they had to have contacts at the highest levels in the monetary and fiscal authorities of the country, so that they would know what monetary and fiscal policy was, what policy in Commerce Ministry was, what policy in Industrial Ministry was. So they had to have excellent contacts inside government and also inside quasi-government bodies, such as those handling the monetary authorities. Now, using that, they would then pump up stocks up and down, and sometimes they would pump up stocks temporarily up, and then they'll make public sector units, institutions buy those stocks. Now, a lot of stocks purchased, for example, by LIC, suddenly just lost value. It was not sudden. It was been predicted that they would have lost value. Who made them buy? Now, you have a lot of such activities taking place, with the consequence, this cabal is trying to make the stock markets in India function like a rigged casino. Now, you have casinos that are not rigged, and you have casinos that are rigged. I mean, you saw in the movie Casablanca how the police chief, was given his winnings from the casino, which was obviously rigged. But the problem is, you have a situation in which this small group of people have made tens and hundreds of billions of dollars out of India. Much of it is out of the country. And in the process, they have severely weakened the banking system and the stock market. And these are, as you said, the two sources of capital for entrepreneurs, the two sources of capital for business people, for intending business people, for startups. And this is the situation that is facing India. Now, how are we going to grow if entrepreneurs don't grow, if startups don't bloom and blossom? And how does that happen when you have a situation in which you have problems in the stock market and problems in the banking system? So my point is, I'm a little surprised that SEBI and the other agencies are moving so slowly in the matter, for a simple reason: this could be suicidal for India. Let me tell you very clearly, this could be, almost in a sense, devastating for the future of India if we allow this kind of cabal, this kind of corruption to grow. And I'm sorry to say, I'm yet not seeing, any real action on this score. Now, in one of my columns, I said it's sleeping SEBI, SSEBI. Well, it's not only SEBI that seems to be sleeping, but let me say that they're all going to wake up, and we're all going to wake up with a thud when India gets into serious trouble, and we are about 3 or 4 years away from that kind of serious collapse because of the way in which, like termites, these people have infiltrated the banks and infiltrated the stock markets, and they're hollowing it out from within so that the whole thing can come crashing down.
One other thing, Professor Nalapat, that I want to mention here, now the middle class is also getting sucked into the stock market by way of these systematic investment plans, SIPs, where now a lot of mutual funds have come up, where the mutual funds are giving, promising returns of 20%, 22%, and so on and so forth. And many companies have got these SIPs in place, and somehow the investor is made to believe that, well, if I put my money in the bank, I'm going to get 6 to 7%, whereas if I put my money in mutual funds, then I'm going to get 20, 22% guaranteed. Dear friends, that nothing can be further from the truth than that. You can take a look at some of the most high-performing funds today, and you'll see that a large part of the portfolio of these funds is using, they are making money off of so-called foreign banks such as HDFC Corporation and ICICI Corporation and so on and so forth. Well, if you look at who really owns HDFC and ICICI Bank, no one knows. It is my contention, and I could be wrong about this, but it is my contention that some high net worth individuals, including politicians and businessmen, are owning huge amounts of stocks in these companies, in these banks, and they can engineer a crash anytime. Guess what? If that should happen, and it is a real possibility, because some of these people are under the scanner of investigating agencies today, and it is imperative that they be taken into custodial interrogation to find out the extent of damage, so that at least today the government can act and try and limit this damage. And this has been going on for too long. In fact, I also want to bring to your attention what Professor Nalapat said about LIC. The recent acquisition of LIC, IDBI by LIC. Professor Nalapat, can you throw a little bit more light on what this is?
Well, I'd like to say that LIC has made a lot of acquisitions, and the acquisition will be judged as to the value of the acquisition 6 months, 6 years from now. And if 6 months, 6 years from now, the value is much lower, then questions need to be asked. And very frankly, if I may say so, those in charge need to be questioned. And my advice to all bank officials, to all officials, frankly, keep recording devices ready with you. And whenever somebody gives an order which you think is illicit, which is oral, record that order. Then send it to a lab outside the country or a trusted lab in the country and get authentication and keep that with you when the police come calling. Because I can tell you, after 3-4 years, when there's an overall crash, the police are going to come all over the place. And now, as it is, a lot of them are now coming all over. You have a lot of bank people in jail. I'm not sure any of these bank people have recorded the conversations they've had and why they took those loans. Essentially, many of them are the passive victims of people from much more powerful people who have made them give these loans. So this is the problem, Sri, very frankly. And in my view, the Modi government has got about 2 months to ensure that these people are not only questioned by the police, but questioned in a way that they give the truth, so that in the next 2 or 3 months after that, they can take some remedial action, because otherwise I fear early next year a crash may come. As you said, an engineered crash, and that can have very severe consequences on an election, because these days it's in villages that people are buying shares. It's in small towns. It's in big towns, everywhere. And as you very correctly said, unfortunately, today, in large part, the small cabal that used to operate and basically ensure rigging of the stock market, that cabal is still operating. It's still outside the jail. It's still outside any serious questioning, and it can still do enormous damage. Why? Frankly, I really am at a loss to understand as to why till now action has been so, insignificant.
See, what happens is when there is a sudden loss of wealth, the first instinct for anyone is to lash out at the current dispensation. And guess who's the current dispensation? It's BJP. So even though Prime Minister Modi may have done phenomenal amount of development work, I can trot out any number of instances where he has done a lot of work. I do not want to take away any of that credit. However, when the situation comes to, oh my God, I have lost 1/3 of my net worth in these mutual funds. The first instinct for human beings is to lash out at the current dispensation, and that might show up as a negative vote against the current dispensation, which in my personal opinion is the best bet for India in the current circumstances, because the other side really doesn't have leadership, nor do they have an agenda, nor do they have a believable story. However, they can benefit from a negative sentiment. This is what we need to guard against. Thank you, Professor Nalapat. This is a very important video, and I'll urge you all to see it one more time if you want to understand some of the concept. Please be cautious, invest wisely. Would you like to add to that, Professor Nalapat?
I'd simply like to say that those who are behind this cabal are well known. They are extremely well known. They are very influential. Unfortunately, they are still very powerful. And the reality of the situation is that it's like a house of cards, And if you remember, the Americans had a deck of cards showing the face of all the people they were out to capture. This deck of cards has the face of the influential people who have been helping this cabal. And I think the fear is that if one or two cards are sent out, the entire deck will come crashing, and they expose the identities of the 52 people, because there are 52 cards. Let's say 52 top people, officials, politicians, others, and so-called technocrats and so-called academics who have participated in this terrible cabal that is hollowing out the banking system and hollowing out the stock market system and hollowing out confidence in both. And I can tell you, I think the Prime Minister has about 45 to 50 days to take firm action, because beyond that point, in my view, it will be too late to do anything remedial about it by the time the election comes around in April or May.
Sobering words, and hopefully the Prime Minister does act. Thank you very much, Professor Nalapat.